You know, it's funny. I mean, I remember always believing in God. I always, even as a little kid. So it's not like I can ever look back at a time in my life where I think I didn't believe that God was out there.
Right.
And I probably would have kept that up throughout my life in some spiritual sense, and maybe in some sort of detached sort of sense of belief in God. But through the years, I mean, I grew up in a very difficult, upbringing, and different things that happen along in life, just like they happen to anybody. Everybody goes through hard times, and some definitely more than others. I was one of the more than others kids, and I've seen so much God do things in my life, actually take action in my life, and change circumstances that really were impossible to change, and make changes in me that were impossible to affect. I guess, so that's one of the reasons is like that God, I've seen Him work, and I've seen Him do so much in my life that I know I have a lot to be grateful for, things out of my control. That's why I believe in God. I think that even maybe on a deeper level, it's because love, God's love is so powerful, and I've felt it in my life, and that love is something that I need, that I think everybody needs. And on a deeper level, why do I believe in God? Because I know God is the only place to get that kind of fulfilling love. Where isn't the situation in my life that God's presence has been extremely apparent? I guess I would just have to tell you my story.
Sure.
And it's it's not the worst story out there, and it's not the greatest story out there. It's my story, and my story is my family and I was born in Russia, and I wasn't really supposed to be born. I mean, the doctors urged my mom to get an abortion, and my dad, because she was very, very sick, very, very ill with a malignant this disease, basically, and don't want to go too deeply into that, but she was very ill, and she was supposed to die, and many complications with the pregnancy. And the doctors, we had the best doctors in Russia at that time for our family, and they said, she's going to die if you have this baby, and the baby's going to die, there's no way. And I went back and forth, and my dad, he went to the doctor, the head doctor there, and he said, is there a chance, one chance in a million, that this baby, that my wife could live? And this doctor was just frustrated and exasperated. Okay, in a million, one chance, maybe, and my dad took that chance. And they had me. I was born, I don't know exactly, it was like a month and a half premature, or something very, I was this big, purple, not breathing. I was incubator for, I think, 2 or 3 months. Had pneumonia. I mean, I was a total little monster. It looked like a monster, they said. And my mom didn't die. It was miraculous. She survived that, and she survived the disease, which was just incredible. And it came back. It was cancer. It came back when we came to America. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is that just my birth already was under unusual circumstances where God's hand was evident. That the best doctors in the country says, you guys are going to die, and if you abort, then maybe your wife will continue living another few years. And they had faith. They had faith in a very hard time. They weren't Christian or anything like that, but they had faith. And we came from Russia. It was a whole story of the things that happened to us in Russia, and we were Jewish by blood, and so we were very persecuted, and it was very hard to get into schools, and for my sister, and a lot of things happened. There was Chernobyl, happened in 1986. That was only about 40 or 50 miles from where I lived. I lived in this radiation for 4.5 years before we left Russia. So it was quite an ordeal. So anyway, we came to America, and we lived in Miami. We went through Italy and Austria, lived in Miami. A lot of things happened. Then we came to Santa Monica. My father, my mother, my sister, and myself. And there's so many details I could go into and things like that, and someday maybe I will, but
sure.
But I think right now, I guess what I can say is it was an extremely difficult childhood. There was divorce and a very dysfunctional, childhood because of just the circumstances and the ways that they affected my mom, the ways they affected my dad and my family, and the dynamics, and it was just a very extremely difficult. I don't want to say anything about anybody, but it was a very rough time. We lived all of my clothes for over a decade were from back alley dumpsters. I slept on cardboard boxes and like egg crates for, I don't even know, 10 years or something like that, and a metal bed that would go down in the middle like this. It was broken, and our food was sometimes donated. It was always the cheapest brand. It was always the clothes handed down from other people or from Goodwill or whatever. We were on welfare, and my mom didn't speak any English, had to learn English. My sister was much older than me. She didn't speak any English, had to learn English. And my dad was gone pretty much since I was like five and a half. He was just gone, and it was an exceptionally difficult family situation for us. And as I grew up, so many things happened. Many dark trials.
Sure.
When I was 13 or so, I was just really at the bottom. As far as, teenagers are already dramatic, but this wasn't drama. This was real. This was intense. And I would have been, one of those suicidal kids, or just statistic, or got involved in something, or whatever. I hated my family, and I felt, I didn't feel love in my life, and I didn't feel trust for people. I didn't feel love for people because of the different things that happened. And felt very empty, very shy, a boy who was really in a shell. And a boy who didn't trust anybody because didn't see a reason to, and at the same time, even through that upbringing and those things, I still had to excel. I had to continue excelling in school, and because there's a lot of pressure. Anyway, I remember when I was 13 or so, I was just at the very bottom, and I would come to this church. I somehow got involved, in this little church and their youth group, and I would cry every time, like wail and cry at every time there was worship music or whatever, because the music just affected me, and God affected me, and I hated my life, and I remember I begged God. There's one day it just got so bad. I begged God. I said, God, if there's one chance in a million, can you do something with my life? Otherwise I'll have to abort this life. And because it was just so low, and I said, God, if you can just, certain things that were happening, can you stop these things? Can you change my family situation? Can you restore the relationships that were in my family and that were so broken and robbed from me and stolen from me by this world and circumstances? And I remember I prayed that, and that year things started to change. It was like that year. I remember clearly that year. First of all, I forgave my family and different people who, different situations, and I forgave, and I decided to be different. But really, I saw them change. So many different people, whatever. I saw incredible change, 180 degrees, and many things that were so difficult just stopped. I don't even know what affected that change, what made it happen. It just changed. And it was like my relationships started to be rebuilt with my mother, with my sister, with my father, with friends, I started to make friends, and I started to change. God just poured out incredible blessing on my life that I never deserved. I didn't do anything to earn it. I just became really gifted in music. I never had a teacher or anything, but I became really just gifted in music. I became really gifted with school. Just always did really well. No matter what happened, I just did well. I became gifted I started acting. I started giving public speeches and traveling and making friends. And it's like God blossomed me and made me grow in ways that there was nothing that should have made me grow like that. It's not like anybody came along or was like, hey, it was a lot of things, many factors, of course, and there were people who did come alongside, but it was like it was just like that year when I said, God, that one chance in a million, can you change my life? Can you change my family? Can you change this circumstance? He did. He did. And then it was just incredible over the next several years. And it took time. You know, it took time for more things, and it was still very hard, even into my early 20s. A lot of crap. But God completely, I can say over the years, completely restored my relationships with my mom, who is the best woman in the world. There's no one like her. And today's Mother's Day, so it's appropriate to. But she really is. She is a completely different person. She's like an angel. And then my father, who, for years, I wasn't allowed to talk to him. I mean, the stories I could tell you would blow your mind. You know, I'm gonna write a book someday. You know, but it's like. Developed a relationship with him over the years slowly, and there's so many ups and downs, but now I call him every day. You know, my sister and the things there are dynamic, and that changed, and then myself, and I grew, and so many things I could say. But what I'm getting at is what God did. I remember when I was maybe 20, 23, and my sister, or 22, my sister had just was about to get married. 21, I don't know. She was about to get married, and we had a Christmas dinner, and my sister came, her husband to be, mother-in-law, my mom, my dad, and myself, and we had this Christmas dinner. And I remember everybody under one roof again, so happy, and everybody's laughing. My mom and dad, who there's a lot of tension between them. They were happy and talking to each other like old friends, which they do now, I guess. And I'm looking around this table, and it's like I felt God in my mind, speak to me. It's like, look at all these things. This is the first dinner, by the way, that I can ever remember in my mind where my whole family was together under one roof at one table. In 22 years, I just don't remember another time when my family was ever had dinner together. And after everything that we had been through, and I remember looking around the table and feeling God say, like, look, all these things that were robbed from you, all these things that were stolen from you, and that you thought was impossible. And I'm telling you, this was impossible, because the hatred and bitterness and all those things that were so deep for so many years had such a hold on I mean, I don't want to go into detail, there's so many different lives involved here, but it was deep, it was powerful, and it was passionate depth of problems, and God said, everything that was stolen, I've brought it all full circle around to one dinner table, and it's back, and here's your father back, here's your mother back, here's your sister back, here's your friendships, here's your life, here's gifts, here's talents, here's education, and here's everything back to you. So really, where did all of that begin? And this is where my walk with God completely begins and ends here. It's when I was 13, I remember that broken point in my life I was telling you about. It's like somebody came up to me, and I was crying at one of those youth group things, and I didn't know this person, they didn't know me. I mean, very acquaintance, but just nothing. They don't know me. And this person sat down next to me, and I was crying, and just told me something that completely changed my life. And he said, no matter what happens, doesn't matter what's happening with your mother or father or family or this or that, God says, I love you. I love you so deeply, and I love you so much. I don't care who you are. I don't care who you've been. I don't care what you've done. I don't care how bad you think you are. I don't care about the circumstances that have brought you so low. It doesn't matter. My love for you goes beyond all of that, will always last. You cannot shake it. You cannot get rid of it. That love is what transformed my life. That love from God. That's what gave me the power, that godly love to forgive and to change and to all these things. So anyway, then as I grew up, I went to school, and God just blessed me in school. I went to UCLA, then I went to law school at USC, and God just took care of me every step of the way. And in my 20s, how many things happened. You've got relationships that fell apart, in devastating ways, and so many heartbreaks and so many things. It's not like it's never going to be easy, one of the things that comforts me is Jesus said, you know, this world, you're going to have many hardships, you're going to have many trials, but take heart. He says, I've overcome this world. You know, and it's like life has been hard even to this day, you know, working my butt off, you know, and having my heart broken and crushed. And, you know, times I was 24, 25, 26, still questioning God. Is God even really there? Does he really care about, even after all of this that has happened, does God really care about me? Has he really, you know, has he left me? Is this? And he shows over and over, and being jobless at times after getting an education and in this economy and, you know, different things, family issues, whatever, God has never left. And that promise of love that he made has seen me through every storm, every heartbreak, where I couldn't even find the pieces of my heart to put it back together. You know, every lowest point of depression, even moments of what I would think is suicidal depression and different times, and, you know, things happen in life. God's love has seen me through. And so you ask me, why do I believe? That's why I believe.